After much waiting, and it would seem just before Christmas, we finally landed the Zoom H6Studio. Now, this is one hell of an upgrade over the original H6, and it's even more of an upgrade over the H6 Essential. So let's take a look at what it offers and see if it's any different from the H5Studio right here, and see if there's anything to make this a better choice for you over the H5, which I actually have the original as well. Hint, by the way, off the bat, this review is rather short. By the way, for the sake of this video, I'm recording into the Zoom H6. I have record hit for number 1 there. And you will also notice I've got the audio out. That's going to my camera, which is probably the audio I'm going to be using is the camera audio, unless something's a little messed up because of this cat. I don't know. We'll see what happens there. So this is very much the same tale as the H5Studio, as the build, aside from the obvious upgrades, is basically the same. The main difference here is where everything is. For starters, the XLR inputs are on the sides of the unit instead of the bottom, making this less of a handheld if you have an XLR mic plugged in. Obviously, there are 2 more inputs with the H6Studio as well. The button for choosing the bitrate is down here on the 6 versus up here on the 5. And the power button also got moved to the bottom of the unit. It actually took me a second to find it. Now, the only other difference is the display button is on the outside instead of being in the software. Another big difference is the internal speaker on the H6Studio is on the front compared to the back. Now, that might not seem like a lot, but it does sound a lot better when it's facing you for sure. And lastly, worth mentioning is just the absolute girth of this thing. Between that and the XLRs coming out the sides, this isn't as comfortable in the hand as the H5Studio. Just some food for thought. And if anyone's going to ask, these are the exact same as the H5Studio. So there's no difference on the top microphones. Other than that, though, the rest of the build is almost exactly the same. I do have some thoughts on that. We will save those for the end. And this is the big difference to talk about here. This, the Essential series, was very much a bare version of a recorder. And before anyone asks, no, I don't have the H6E anymore. I gave it to someone who needed it shortly after I reviewed it. However, there was little difference from the H4E except for the XY mics. Let me be clear though, the capsules on the H6Studio is a hell of an upgrade from anything on the Essentials line. Remember, the Essential line is very much a simplistic recorder, and you can really see that when you compare the screen readout between the Essentials and the Studio line. But despite these upgrades, the menus don't really differ that much, but there is obviously more options on the Studio line, and you can dial in the settings quite a bit more. And of course, the big upgrade here were those preamps as we showed with the review of the H5Studio. Now, this is very much a comparison of a piece of studio gear and an entry-level piece of gear like this H4E. Just the little things like being able to access the mixer while you're playing back your audio on the studio lineup just kind of reinforces that point. What's wild to me, though, is that the H6E isn't much cheaper than the H6Studio. It's like only $70 cheaper. And even wilder is that the H5Studio is only $20 more than the H6E. I can honestly say, with those few extra bucks, are really well worth it, especially just for the preamps. Now, I gotta say, when I asked Zoom if I could review this, I was sure there was going to be some differences between the H5 and the H6Studio. And I don't know, it's not a disappointment, but they're basically the exact same thing with the exception of more inputs.
They're the same.
And with that in mind, I was going to do a bit of an audio comparison, but honestly, it won't turn out any different from the H5Studio review I did. And I am a little bit disappointed with that. You see, back in the day, the H6 was kind of the more premium version of the H5. It wasn't just the extra inputs, it was the screen too, which back then was a pretty snazzy deal being color and all. And I get it, these things aren't anywhere near to the cost difference they were, with only around $50 between them. But still, there was always something more there. And as an overall recorder, this thing is legit the best thing on the market. And I didn't even bring up the accessibility options with the new Zoom recorders, which is making these an obvious choice for people that are visually impaired.
SD card, USB,
system settings and out by system setting file list.
And you may have noticed I didn't even bring up Tascam, and despite the screen being superior, Tascam needs to do something to catch up and compete with this new lineup. So if you're looking for the best all-around recorders, the H6Studio and the H5Studio are your go-to, and I'm hoping there might be more competition in this market soon. I would love to see what some other companies might be able to come up with. Again though, if you want this summed up as quickly as possible, if you need 2 XLR inputs, go with the 5. If you need more, well, go with the 6. Let me know what you guys think down below though. Cheers, and I will see you in the next video.